as the American School Health Association's Transition Director. Thank you for joining us today for this presentation on the Interim Final Rule for Nutrition Standards in Schools. The American School Health Association, otherwise known as ASHA, is the only organization that addresses multiple disciplines in school health and that is devoted solely to school health. Our membership of approximately 800 individuals represents school health as administrators, counselors, dietitians, nutritionists, health educators, physical educators, psychologists, school health coordinators, school nurses, school physicians, and social workers. We're the proud publishers of the Journal of School Health, a premier journal in the area of school and adolescent health. Members of ASHA can elect to receive a hard copy or an electronic copy of the journal. Our membership fee is inexpensive and provides you access to the journal and also to our bi-monthly e-newsletter, School Health Action, as well as free continuing education hours through webinars such as today's presentation on smart snacks in schools. If you haven't already, please consider joining, volunteering, and becoming a member of the ASHA community. Visit us at ashaweb.org to learn more. As I mentioned, the continuing education credit for today's webinar is free for all members. If you are a non-member and you would like to receive CE credit for this webinar, we require a payment of $30. After the webinar, you can receive 1.0 Category 1 Continuing Education Contact Hour, 1.0 Hour CPEU, or a Certificate of Attendance for 70% or more participation today. Participation is measured by the amount of time the webinar remains active on your screen. Please join us October 9th through 11th for the 88th Annual School Health Conference in Portland, Oregon. This year, we've partnered with the Oregon School-Based Health Alliance, and we hope you'll join us for what will be an invigorating and resourceful conference. Registration is now open, and you can visit our website, ashaweb.org, to learn more and to register. And one final update, we're excited to host a webinar later this month centered around the new sex ed standards that will be published in the June issue of our Journal of School Health. For more information and registration details, please visit our website, ashaweb.org. Now, let's get started on today's webinar. We're delighted to have Nancy Lyons from the USDA presenting Interim Final Rule, Nutrition Standards for All Foods Sold in School. Nancy Lyons is a Senior Policy Analyst with the Food and Nutrition Service of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Her work deals with the development of legislation, regulations, and policy for school nutrition programs. She has worked in that same capacity in numerous nutrition programs during her tenure with the agency, including the Child Care Food Program, the Summer Food Service Program, the Special Supplemental Food Program for Women, Infants and Children, and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, formerly known as the Food Stamp Program. She currently works for the School Programs Division of the Special Nutrition Programs in the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program. She's also been an American Political Science Association Federal Executive Fellow, working as a Legislative Fellow for Senator Debbie Stabenow, Democrat, Michigan. Issues that she was engaged in during her work for Senator Stabenow included assisting the Senator in her capacity as co-chair of the Senate's Task Force on Pharmaceutical Drugs, Nutrition, and Commodity Issues, as well as general legislative support dealing with the Senator's Budget and Banking Committee responsibilities. Welcome, Nancy. I'm now going to turn it over to you. Nancy?
Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for joining me this afternoon and giving me the opportunity to present an overview of the nutrition standards for all foods sold in school. Today I'm going to provide you with a brief overview and a policy update on the Interim Final Rule to establish nutrition standards for all foods sold in school and give you some information on the next steps toward implementation as well as resources. As you know, this rule is part of the package of policy improvements enacted by the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010. There we go. Thank you. The Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010 requires USDA to establish nutrition standards for all food sold in school beyond the federally supported meals programs. The law specifies that the nutrition standards shall apply to all food sold outside of the school meal programs, on the school campus, and at any time during the school day. This includes all food and beverages sold a la carte in the cafeteria, in school stores, at snack bars, from vending machines, and any other venues that sell food to students on the school campus during the school day. This new rule carefully balances science-based nutrition guidelines with practical and flexible solutions to promote healthier eating on campus. The rule draws on recommendations from the Institute of Medicine, existing voluntary standards already implemented by many thousands of schools around the country, and healthy food and beverage options already available in the marketplace today. The Interim Final Rule was developed and published in the Federal Register last June 28th of 2013. As you know, the requirements of this Interim Final Rule, as published, will go into effect on July 1st, 2014 for the school year 14-15. I also wanted to note that the standards for food and beverages in the Interim Final Rule represent minimum standards that local education agencies, school food authorities, and schools must meet for food sold to children in school. State agencies and local education agencies have the discretion to establish their own standards for competitive food sold to children, as long as those standards are consistent with the minimum federal standards established by regulation. Just as a little bit of a background, I'd like to discuss what competitive foods are. Competitive foods are defined as all food and beverages sold to students on the school campus during the school day, other than those meals reimbursable under programs authorized by the National School Lunch Act and the Child Nutrition Act. This would include the lunch and breakfast programs. The competitive food standards apply during the school day, meaning from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day, or what may be considered the instructional day. We specified the period of midnight before to ensure that the competitive food standards would apply to food sold in the morning, including during the school breakfast meal service. While USDA's authority does not extend beyond the school day, states and/or local school districts have the discretion to apply these standards during after-school, evening, and weekend activities on campus, should they wish to do so. These standards apply to all areas of the school campus where competitive foods are sold. The regulation defines school campus as all areas of the property under the jurisdiction of the school that are accessible to students during the school day. This includes a la carte lines, school stores, snack bars, vending machines, and any other sales and any other venues that sell food to students during the school day. This would not include areas for the exclusive use of the faculty and staff, such as teachers' lounges, insofar as those areas are not accessible to students during the day. Schools that do not participate in the National School Lunch Program or the School Breakfast Program are not subject to the Smart Snacks requirements. USDA recognizes that school-sanctioned fundraisers are a method of financing many important activities for students. The sale of food items that meet the nutrition requirements, as well as the sale of non-food items as fundraisers, are not limited in any way under the Interim Final Rule. In addition, it's important to note that the nutrition standards would not apply during non-school hours, weekends, and off-campus fundraising events, such as concessions during sporting events or school plays. It's also important to understand that these standards do not apply to treats for birthdays or foods brought by the student from home for their own consumption, though many local school wellness policies currently address those types of foods. State agencies also have the discretion to determine the frequency of exempt fundraisers. If the state agency does not specify a frequency, then no exempt fundraisers may take place at school. Exempt fundraisers, I don't know if I clarified that, exempt fundraisers are those fundraisers that do not have to meet the standards. The statute allows such fundraisers to occur on an infrequent basis. The regulation defers that that authority to state agencies to establish how many fundraisers that are exempt from these standards can be held at schools during the school day. The standards established by the state are minimum standards. Should local schools or local districts choose to establish additional standards that are not inconsistent with those established by the state, they may do so. USDA will be actively monitoring implementation and observing the state fundraising standards that are set as we proceed with the development of a final rule. As a reminder, no exempt fundraiser foods or beverages may be sold in competition with school meals in the food service area during the meal service. The nutrition standards for food sold in school are the same for all grades of students. The rule contains both general standards and specific nutrient standards, as well as exemptions from certain nutrient standards for some specific foods that are considered to be foods to encourage. In addition, the rule provides broad exemptions for fruits and vegetables and a day of service and following day exemption for entree items that are served as part of a reimbursable meal under the school lunch program or the school breakfast program. I'll discuss these exemptions after we go through some of the basic requirements. In general, in order to be sold to students at school, a competitive food item must not only meet all the competitive food nutrient standards, which I will discuss with you shortly, but a food item must also qualify under one of the 4 other criteria. A food item must also be a whole grain rich product or have as the first ingredient a fruit, vegetable, dairy product, or protein food, or be a combination food with at least 1/4 cup of fruit and or a vegetable, or contain 10% of the daily value of one nutrient of public health concern. This is valid only through June 30th of 2016. Nutrients of public health concern are defined in the Dietary Guidelines for Americans and currently include calcium, potassium, vitamin D, and dietary fiber. Next, I'll review each of the general standards in a little bit more detail in the next slide. Under the Interim Final Rule, foods are required to contain no more than 35% of their total calories from fat per item as packaged or served. There are some exemptions to this total fat limit for certain foods, including reduced fat cheese, nuts and seeds, and nut and seed butters, products consisting of only dried fruit with nuts and seeds, with no additional added nutritive sweeteners or fat, and seafood with no added fat. Under this Interim Final Rule, an allowable competitive food must contain less than 10% of its total calories from saturated fat per item as packaged or served. The rule again exempts certain foods from the saturated fat standard. Additionally, all foods must have 0 grams of trans fat per portion as packaged. Trans fat is identified on the product label, which for an eligible food will say 0 on a per portion basis. Recently published question and answer guidance includes information on the calculation for determining percentage of calories from saturated fat in an item. The rule includes 2 sodium standards. One standard for items considered to be entrees, which we talked about a little earlier, and another standard for snack and side items. The sodium limit for entrees that do not qualify under the school lunch and school breakfast exemption that I'll discuss in a few moments is no more than 480 milligrams of sodium per item as served. For snacks and side dishes, the proposed rule included a sodium standard of 200 milligrams per item. However, in response to the comments we received that cited concerns about the availability and acceptance of lower sodium options, this Interim Final Rule sets an initial limit for sodium at 230 milligrams for snacks and side dishes for the first 2 years of implementation. We understand that sodium intake is an important health issue that must be addressed, but we also recognize that making sodium changes is a process that will take time because of the need to reformulate or develop new products, as well as for time for children to adapt to new flavor profiles in foods. The initial standard for snack and side items takes into consideration a number of voluntary standards that specify a sodium sodium level of no more than 230 milligrams of sodium. Beginning July 1, 2016, the sodium limit for snacks and side dishes will be reduced to 200 milligrams per item. Foods must also comply with the standards for calories. Entree items have a calorie limit of no more than 350 calories, including any accompaniments. As I will discuss later, entree items that are part of the reimbursable meal, but also sold a la carte, would not be subject to these limits on the day of or the day after they are served in the meal. For snack items and side dishes, the standard requires that they contain no more than 200 calories per item at all times. The Interim Final Rule requires that 35% or less of the weight of an allowable competitive food come from total sugars. Guidance on how to calculate sugar by weight is also included in the set of Q&As that were recently published and are on our website. Fruits and vegetables are nutrient-dense, and most children do not consume the recommended amounts of them. To be consistent with both the Dietary Guidelines for Americans as well as the Institute of Medicine's recommendations, this Interim Final Rule includes an exemption to the standards for certain fruits and vegetables. These are fresh, frozen, and canned fruit packed in water, 100% juice, light syrup or extra light syrup, fresh, frozen, and canned vegetables with no added ingredients except water, or canned vegetables that contain a small amount of sugar for processing purposes in order to maintain the quality and structure of the vegetable. Fruit packed in light syrup and canned vegetables containing small amounts of sugar are consistent with what is allowed in the National School Lunch and School Breakfast programs and with the WIC program's policy to allow sugar in certain vegetables that are certain canned vegetables. We have also issued guidance on with regard to sugar that's included in frozen fruit products, and that will be published shortly as well. As I mentioned previously, USDA paid special attention to ensuring that the nutrition standards for all food sold to children complement or align with the updated school meal requirements. The Interim Final Rule provides an exemption for entree items that are part of the reimbursable meal offered by the school food service, but also made available for a la carte purchase. The Interim Final Rule requires that side dishes available a la carte meet all applicable competitive food standards at all times. This entree exemption is available only on the day the item is served as part of the reimbursable meal and on the day after. This approach supports the concept of school meals as being helpful while providing flexibility to program operators on planning leftovers. USDA will monitor the impact of this exemption over time to determine what types of entrees are being served in order to ensure that the goals of the competitive food standards are being supported. The standards for beverages are structured a little differently than the standards for food. The standards for beverages vary by grade level, and they specifically identify the types and maximum portion sizes of the beverages allowed. Allowable beverages for all grade levels include water, milk, and juice in serving sizes appropriate for age and grade levels. Plain water may be sold to all students without limits on size. This includes plain carbonated water with no natural or other flavors or sweeteners for students in elementary or middle schools. Unflavored low-fat milk and unflavored or flavored non-fat milk may be sold in up to 8-ounce portions in elementary school and up to 12-ounce portions for middle and high school students. This also includes nutritionally equivalent milk alternatives as permitted in the school meals program, such as soy milk and other types of milk. Finally, 100% fruit and or vegetable juice may be sold. Based on comments, the rule allows the addition of 100% juice diluted with water, which may be sold in these age-appropriate portion sizes. Diluted juice provides a lower calorie and a nutritious option. These products could be carbonated or non-carbonated, but they must not include any added sweeteners or other additives, only 100% juice and water. For elementary schools, the maximum serving size for juice is 8 ounces, and for middle and high schools, the maximum serving size is 12 ounces. In recognition of the wide range of beverages available to high school students in the broader marketplace and the increased independence these older students have relative to the younger students in making consumer choices, the rule provides additional beverage choices for high school students. It is reasonable to provide high school students with a broader range of choices while still limiting those choices to those which are more nutrient-dense and or lower in calories than other options. Therefore, the following beverages are allowed in high schools only: calorie-free, flavored and or unflavored water with or without carbonation in portion sizes less than or equal to 20 fluid ounces, and other calorie-free beverages with less than 5 calories per 8 fluid ounces or less than or equal to 10 calories per 20 fluid ounces. Such products may include flavored waters, carbonated or uncarbonated waters, enhanced waters, vitamin or nutrient waters, or other similar beverages. For other beverages available in high school, this interim final rule includes the lower of the two options that were set forth in our proposed rule. Lower calorie beverages up to 60 calories per 12 ounces or up to 40 calories per 8 ounces may be served in a maximum serving size of 12 ounces. Basically, the standards require that beverage calories equal 5 or fewer calories per ounce. We are currently providing additional guidance on this, which will be published shortly. There are many options available in the current marketplace that meet these standards at this time, such as lower calorie sports drinks, lower calorie tea, lemonade beverages, etc. The interim final rule specifies that only caffeine-free foods and beverages be allowed for elementary and middle school students. However, the rule includes an exemption for foods and beverages that contain trace amounts of naturally occurring caffeine substances such as chocolate milk. The majority of the commenters on the proposed rule supported the caffeine restriction in elementary and middle schools, and as well as allowing caffeine in high schools. USDA is concerned, however, as were some commenters, that items with high levels of caffeine may not be appropriate for consumption at school. At this time, there is no formal authoritative standard for caffeine consumption. Therefore, it's not appropriate for USDA to set such a standard. While the FDA has not set a daily caffeine limit for children, it has recently announced that it will be investigating the safety of caffeine in food products, particularly with regard to its effects on children and adolescents. USDA encourages schools to be mindful of the level of caffeine in food and beverages when selecting products that may be sold to children. We will continue to monitor the research and the recommendations on caffeine in children as the Smart Snacks rule is implemented. In addition, we are publishing additional guidance regarding coffee drinks for high school-aged children very shortly. Probably the most important point to remember is that the Nutrition Facts Panel contains all the information that one would need to evaluate compliance of competitive food and beverage items in schools with our standards for Smart Snacks. However, it's important to remember that these values are identified as packaged and served. So if there are 2 servings in the container, that information must be taken into consideration when you're evaluating a product for Smart Snacks compliance. A very important, a very important resource for local education agencies, PTA folks, school stores, school clubs that are purchasing foods to be sold in schools would be the Smart Snacks calculator. The Alliance for a Healthier Generation, aligned with the Clinton Foundation, has updated a nutrition calculator for food and beverage items to accommodate the Smart Snack standards included in this regulation. It's important that you have this web address, so I'll read it out loud. You can access the Alliance calculator at https://schools.healthiergeneration.org/focus _areas/snacks_beverages. In addition, on our webpage, www.fns.usda.gov, school meals, Smart Snacks at School, you can access the calculator as well. In addition, the Alliance for a Healthier Generation is also developing a product listing. Manufacturers are encouraged to have their products listed through the Alliance list, and that's an easy place for folks to be able to go and see if the foods that they're purchasing to sell at school meets the Smart Snacks requirements. As I mentioned earlier, state agencies and schools are required to implement the standards and all of the provisions of this interim final rule beginning July 1st of 2014. We know from experience that some schools are already very well positioned to make these changes, and others will struggle at first. We know that schools will need time to fully transition to the new requirements. However, in the meantime, USDA is providing technical assistance, training, guidance materials to our state agencies and our local education agencies prior to and during the implementation period. We've developed a brochure for our state agencies and schools to use to describe the Smart Snacks provisions. As previously mentioned, we have published a short set of Q&As to respond to the most common issues we've become aware of through questions that have been received from state agencies and schools and others. We're publishing a second set of Q&As very shortly. And these questions and answers and other policy memos dealing with Smart Snacks issues are available on our website that I previously mentioned. And we're going to be continuing to answer questions and monitor issues and issue guidance as implementation of Smart Snacks progresses. In addition, we're reaching out to organizations such as yours, school administrators, school principals, various non-traditional stakeholders, folks that don't deal very often with school meals, and we are, presenting several, many webinars, attending conferences, and making materials available to other organizations that are partnering with us in this endeavor. And actually, that concludes my presentation on Smart Snacks, and I want to thank you all very much again for the opportunity to speak with you today. And I believe that we're going to be answering, we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A session. And if you have questions, that you wish to submit later, I'm sure you can submit them to ASHA, and they will get those questions to me. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Again, if you do have questions, please type those questions into the panel. Labeled questions. Nancy, we do have a couple for you. Why does this continue to be called Interim Final Rule? Does it mean it is not really final?
Okay, well, there are three types of rules that you have. One is a proposed rule where we issue a regulation to the public and we ask for comments. And on this particular rule, we got almost 300,000 comments, so it was quite a job to analyze all those comments. Then we chose to publish an interim final rule. What an interim final rule means, it is in effect at this time, but when we issue a final rule, we do not have to go out for comments again. We did go out for comments on the interim final rule. That comment period ended quite a while ago. We only received about 520 comments on the interim final rule. And once that comment period is over, that means the interim final rule is in effect until a final rule is published. What it does for us is allows us to take into consideration issues, comments, problems, things that we did not foresee without officially, for us to take that into consideration without officially having to go out for more comments afterwards. We can simply take those issues that we found out about it or comments that we receive and incorporate them into a final rule without going back through the comment process again. So it's an advantage for program operators, and it's certainly an advantage for us to be able to issue an interim final rule. This doesn't mean it's temporary. This means it is in effect, and it is the rule. I think FDA had interim final rules on sunscreen for like 24 years. So, I mean, they can last a long time. Hopefully, these will be finalized shortly. But these are the rules that are in effect right now and will be in effect as of July 1, pardon me.
Great. A couple of people have asked if they will have access to the PowerPoint and the websites for the Smart Snacks Calculator, and everybody will receive the PowerPoint following this webinar, which will include the links to that Smart Snacks Calculator. The next question is, could you clarify how this affects birthday cupcakes? My understanding is that this does not apply.
Your understanding is correct. It does not apply. Any foods brought from home for children, for celebrations, for birthdays. Now, school wellness policies, schools may have policies about that, but Smart Snacks does not apply to such items. only to foods sold to students at school.
Okay, great. Again, if anybody has a question, just type it into the question box. We have plenty of time to answer all and every question.
Maybe I can speak in the meantime while you're getting some questions. Fundraisers are very important, and we realize that. And one of the things that we're working on right now, we're doing a webinar next week with the Center for Disease Control and the Alliance for a Healthier Generation on fundraising ideas. What we really want to encourage is our non-food fundraisers, our fundraisers that obviously sell the food that meet our requirements, and there are a lot of foods that do meet the requirements, but also activity fundraisers. And we've been gathering many success stories. CDC has a fantastic database of success stories on fundraisers, and so does the Alliance. So you might want to be, keep tabs on our website, keep tabs on our webpage, because more and more resources would become available to you as we implement and as we move forward. And there's a lot of fantastic ideas. I myself was quite surprised at how creative some schools have been, and some clubs have been, and sports teams have been on creative fundraisers.
Okay, great. We just got a slew of questions. So, does the restriction on the sale of competitive foods cover the extended school day during tutoring and after-school programs, especially if the school participates in the supper program?
Yeah. No, the Smart Snack standards apply 30 minutes after the end of the normal school day. So 30 minutes after the end of the school day, the Smart Snack standards no longer apply, and they don't apply during the evening activities.
Okay, where do I find the Smart Snacks brochure?
All the state education agencies ordered those a bit ago, and they were all mailed out to them, I think, mid-February. So the State Departments of Education have them available. We are waiting for it to be posted online. We're hoping very soon to be able to post that online. There's some type of, I don't know, there's some issue with posting it online right now, so that you can download it yourself. But the state agencies have it, and I can certainly, if folks would like to get some, I can certainly send you guys a supply at ASHA. We have
that would be great.
Yeah, we have supplies here, so I'd be happy to do that, so you can distribute them.
Great. Okay, next question. Keep them coming. We do ice cream Fridays. Kids can bring 50 cents to get ice cream. We'll have to evaluate the ice cream used, correct?
Yes, unless it's considered an exempt fundraiser. I would hope that schools would not allow weekly fundraisers, but it's up to the state agencies. But yeah, I mean, if it would be easier if it wasn't an exempt fundraiser and the kids could, you would have to evaluate the ice cream that you serve them. Yes. And there's lots of products on the market that do meet our standards.
Okay, within this final rule model, where do vending machines stand? Are they considered directly competitive to food served and sold within designated food service areas like cafeterias?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I quite understand the question, but all vending machines in the school need to meet the Smart Snack standards. But they're not restricted any longer like we used to. We used to have a time and place restriction that they couldn't be turned on or whatever during school food service, but that's not the case any longer. You cannot have fundraisers during the school meal service, but there are no restrictions on time and place any longer for the sale of foods that meet our Smart Snacks requirements that are in vending machines.
Okay, speaking of resources, can you provide a list of resource URLs as part of the follow-up email to webinar participants?
Yeah, they are included on our website, but yes, absolutely. I'll make sure that ASHA gets it.
Okay, does the rule apply to bake sales and regular sales of breakfast foods by classroom teachers?
Yes, all sales at any location, at any venue, by any person in the school.
Okay, considering a vending machine technically has 24/7 access, what sort of regulations would it be under? Products not following the guidelines would presumably be allowed in the machine because of the possibility of sales after hours. How would it be regulated during school hours? Is it under the standards then?
During school hours, the vending machines that are accessible to students would have to meet the Smart Snack standards or not be accessible to students, or be turned off, basically, until they can be turned on.
Okay. Do the Smart Snacks rules apply before school starts?
Yes, from the midnight before school starts to 30 minutes after the end of the school day. And this is to ensure that school breakfast food also meets the Smart Snack standards. And it was our understanding from many of the comments that we received that there are school fundraisers very often during the breakfast hours, bagels, donuts, that kind of stuff. And these standards are designed to ensure that whatever, if there are such fundraisers, they're either exempt fundraisers or they're healthy food fundraisers that meet our requirements.
What happens to schools that don't comply and are caught?
Well, basically, this rule does not specifically deal with fines or sanctions or anything like that. There are other regulations that will address those particular issues, but our approach on compliance is that, particularly during the first year, is to ensure that we provide technical assistance, that we provide guidance, that we help the school as much as possible to ensure that they are in compliance. And so it's more of a technical assistance approach than a punitive approach, of course. We just want everyone to, you know, sort of make sure everyone makes a smooth transition.
What other goals does USDA hope to achieve with future final rules?
Well, the whole, you know, the whole focus of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act certainly is to improve meals and improve the health of our nation's children. I'm sure you're aware the school meal standards themselves, the school meal patterns have undergone some changes. Those have been implemented for the past 2 years, and 90% of our schools have implemented the new standards. There have been some issues that they have, some misunderstandings that have been had as well. But the whole environment in the school, the goal here is to ensure that it is a healthy environment. Many of our students, the only meals that they get, or the only balanced meals that they may get, may indeed be at school. And we just want to, you know, the goal, I think, of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act is passed by Congress to make sure that children the school environment is a healthy environment, and the choices that are available to them are good choices.
Okay, just to clarify, in kindergarten and first grade, parents bring snacks to the class daily. We try to request it be a healthy snack, but does this rule apply or not since it's brought in?
No, it's only foods sold to children, and I don't think the little ones are buying those foods. No, that this rule applies to foods for sale to children in the various venues in the school, not for foods that are brought in.
Okay.
And given, you know, foods, let me clarify that. Not for foods that are brought in and given to the children. If foods are brought in and sold to the children, that's different. But foods that are brought in and given to children, that's fine.
Okay. How is fundraiser defined? If a bake sale is to raise money, does it become a fundraiser that can be exempt?
Yeah. Any we have defined fundraiser as any activity that is sanctioned by the school and provides funding for, you know, a special interest for the school or another interest, and that it's approved by the school. All of, you know, bake sales and cookie sales, and, well, that would be a bake sale. You know, soda sales, whatever they have, candy sales, pardon me, that do not meet the Smart Snacks requirements would have to be undertaken during an exempt fundraiser time. Those are all considered exempt fundraisers.
Okay, what about a fundraiser which takes sales 30 minutes after school ends but delivers the food, pretzels for example, during lunchtime for students to consume?
We consider any exchange of money, tokens, anything to be an exchange of a sale of food. So you're saying you take the orders after school, but you feed the children that fundraiser pretzel during the meal. You're not allowed to have fundraisers during the meal in the meal service area. So, maybe if you could send that question in writing, I could understand it a little bit better, but you can't sell fundraiser foods during the meal because it competes with the meal in the lunchroom. So that doesn't work. And it's not being given to the students, so it's not free. It is a fundraiser. So it would have to be considered, I would think it would be considered an exempt fundraiser, but, I'm not sure I understand the particular situation. So, if you're interested, you can certainly provide me with the actual circumstance, and I can see if we can help you out with that.
Okay, and if the person who sent in the question, they can just email info@ASHAWeb, and we will get that question to Nancy for clarification.
Yeah,
what about home education classes with students learning how to cook? Are they required to follow the same nutrition standards?
Culinary schools, culinary programs are a very important program in the curriculums, and we just issued a recent policy memo on that. They are not waived from the requirements to meet these standards. We encourage them to meet these standards. We have told our state agencies to consider culinary programs as exempt fundraisers should they wish to sell some of the food items that they make to students. However, very few, our understanding from the National Restaurant Association is that very few culinary programs do sell food to children. They're mostly doing catering and selling food to other organizations, adults in the school as opposed to students in the school. But yeah, if they are selling food to students in the school, we encourage them to follow our standards. Or if they're not and they're doing fundraisers, then they would have to be, the state agencies would have to consider the culinary program as part of their exempt fundraiser policy. And we issued a policy memo on that. That's on our webpage as well.
Okay, how about field trips? Since those are off-site, do the standards not apply to food sold to students? I kind of think that's a real fun question, and no one has really asked that, which surprises me. On the school campus during the school day, all areas under the control of the school. We've answered the question whether the school bus is under the control of the school, and the answer is yes. The field trip thing, I'm going to have to get back to y'all. Okay, great. Are there any materials that have been developed that are easily copied that can be given to the clubs, school organizations, or parents so that they understand the changes that are being made?
Yes, and that's where the brochure comes in, and that's the primary reason we did the brochure for the states to send to whoever wanted them so that they can, like to the PTAs, can give them out to the parents, the school principal can give them out to the parents, whoever's in charge of the school wellness committee can give it out to the parents so folks understand, and the student, we have a lot of student stores, the kids are doing their own purchasing, et cetera. Yeah, and that could be given out. And that's what the brochure is about. And of course, as I mentioned, our 2 web pages. We have a link to the National Agriculture Library, which has a lot of these resources on it, and that is directly linked at the bottom of our Smart Snacks page, which has many, many linkages to, and also has, like a one-pager of the requirements. So that, and if people want more information, obviously there's more information there, but you can see all the requirements on a one-page sheet, which also is helpful. But yeah, most of that stuff is all on our website, and is certainly you're welcome to download and print as many as you want. But the brochure, the state education agencies, their nutrition folks have ordered them and have supplies of them. But as I said, I'll also provide some to ASHA. I don't have huge numbers here, but I have a few hundred here that I've saved to send to folks.
Great. Last question. If anybody else has any question, they should type it into the little question box. Can you clarify the definition of exempt fundraiser?
Yes, an exempt fundraiser is a fundraiser that sells food to children on the campus during the school day that do not meet the Smart Snacks requirements. These fundraisers are required by law, by statute, to be infrequent. We are allowing the state agencies to determine what that means, what infrequent is for the schools. Schools can certainly have fewer than a state agency may determine is the top level number of fundraisers, exempt fundraisers, but those exempt fundraisers are fundraisers such as the bake sales, the candy sales, et cetera, that are limited.
Okay, why is this program called Smart Snacks? This seems to be a misnomer.
Yeah, I agree. It's something we didn't have control over. Apparently some of our media people think it's catchy. It's really called the Interim Final Rule, National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program, Nutrition Standards for All Foods Sold in Schools as required by the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010. Apparently that's not as catchy to people as Smart Snacks, so that's why we're calling it Smart Snacks.
Okay, we'll just give a few more seconds for any last-minute questions. And again, as a reminder, Asha will send everyone the PowerPoint, which includes the Smart Snacks Calculator website, and Nancy will send over some resources that we will make available to all of you. All right, if there are no more questions, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Nancy. This webinar is now over. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.